Hi, I'm Rad Simonpillai sitting in for Elamin Abdelmahmoud. This is Commotion, and it's Friday, so we're looking back at the big arts and pop culture stories this week. Today, it's all movies. The Jurassic World franchise is stomping back into theaters. John Cena, Idris Alba, they're playing bickering world leaders in the new action comedy Heads of State, and I'm here for the bickering in the group chat. Rachel Ho, Jackson Weaver, Alison Wilmore, they're all ready for it. Welcome to Commotion, y'all.
Hello, hello.
Hello, hello.
Hello.
Listen, y'all, okay, so I promise we're going to be talking about dinosaurs real soon. But first, I do want to start off with a much quieter film that's out today, a film that's had this profound emotional impact on a lot of people who've seen it.
Something pretty bad happened to me.
Did it just happen?
No. It was a little over 3 years ago.
Well, that's not that much time.
I know this is hard to talk about.
It doesn't feel that you know that.
That's a bit of the trailer for Sorry Baby. The movie was the talk of the Sundance Film Festival when it premiered there in January. Allison, can you give us a snapshot of what this movie's about and why it generated so much buzz?
Yeah, so it's the directorial debut of Ava Victor, who I think became like a kind of online phenomenon, especially on Twitter for videos, and who also stars in the film as Agnes, who is a grad student and then a professor at the English department in this small liberal arts college in unspecified New England, and who gets sexually assaulted by her thesis advisor, something that we don't see at first because the film is not told in a linear fashion, but it is very much a story about both grappling with this, this kind of like terrible violation from someone that she was very close to and trusted, and then about the idea of how you contend with this trauma and talk about this trauma, the kind of failures of the various apparatuses we have in place that are supposed to kind of help you address this, from like the doctor to the administrators at the college. And then it's also about these two really good friends. Agnes's best friend is who's played by Naomi Eki, is like the kind of like great constant in her life and the person who like she's actually able to talk to about the things that are happening.
When you describe that in such a brief, there's just so much there in such a brief synopsis, right? And it's a lot of heavy stuff. And as you mentioned, this is a film that is written and directed by its star, Eva Victor. I don't know that this is a film that anyone would have expected from Eva Victor, especially if you got to know her from her really like satirical social media videos like this one.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my god, babe. Babe, pack your bag. We're going to Straight Pride. What do you mean, what's Straight Pride? Babe, you need to get online. Basically, Straight Pride is where all the straight people are going to gather and celebrate being straight. It sounds so fun. I actually can't even fathom how fun this is going to be. I don't understand what's not computing. We have 364 days a year where we have unbelievable unspoken privilege, and then we have 1 day a year, 1 day where we get to celebrate having that privilege all year round.
Jackson, it's one thing to make funny skits like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then making a feature-length film like Sorry Baby, that's a whole other beast. How do you think Eva fares with both, dramatic acting, but also long-form storytelling?
I didn't really know anything about her before I came to this movie, and I would not be surprised if a lot of it was drawn from her real life. She's in this MFA program, this creative writing MFA program, and I believe her thesis is on the nature of the short story and just the hyper-specific details that are peppered around in this program. I feel like somebody has to have lived through this. But the way that the story is told, I think, as well, speaks to somebody who has like a mastery of the short form. And I think, short form videos and jokey ones at that aren't necessarily one-to-one related to short fiction, but I think there's a corollary there. And I think she's brought over her expertise there in telling this story, because this is not a plot-driven story. There is a horrible thing that happened, and then we kind of extrapolate from there the rippling effects that it has onto people, how character can evolve from that. One of my favorite books is this book called Bad Haircut by Tom Perrotta, and it's also a series of short stories about one character, and there's not necessarily one defining moment that is all around, but it's just building up this experiential idea of a person and like what it means to kind of become an adult in the 70s, which is not what this movie is about, but it has its same scope and thesis and aim. And I think that she just either has an amazing background in short fiction that I don't necessarily know all about, or she just has this mastery of the form that she's able to really build out an idea and a feeling and an evocation of an experience. And I really, really love this movie.
You know, I love that, and I deeply love how there's always a book with you.
I'll always find one.
Yes,
I will
you'll-
always find one.
Well, Rachel, I mean, look, over the past decade, we've seen a lot of post-MeToo movies, right? And they range. I mean, you have like thrillers like Promising Young Woman or Blink Twice, and then more sobering, big-picture dramas like Women Talking. So how do you think Sorry Baby, I mean, this is like those movies, this is a movie that's dealing with sexual assault and its aftermath. How does it stand apart from those movies?
For me, it's the optimism. Like, I wasn't expecting to come away from this movie feeling optimistic about the world or optimistic about what happens to Agnes or anything that would be kind of the follow-up of dealing with that trauma and learning how she's living with that trauma and managing it. The film, like Alison said, there's a lot of doctors and people who don't know how to deal with rape properly, and they're really inappropriate, and the things that they say are absolutely obscene. And you see the way that the system does let her down. But you also see her friend, you see the kindness from strangers like John Carroll Lynch, that was in the first clip there that we heard. His appearance coming in as this complete stranger who just helps Agnes, just takes time out of his day to help this person who he sees is struggling quite a bit and doesn't even know why. And there's a really, really touching scene right at the end. I mean, without spoiling it, I don't think you can really spoil this movie, but without, giving too much away, she's talking to like a baby, and she's babysitting this baby, and she's talking to it, and it's basically saying, over your life, bad things are going to happen, but I'm going to be here. Your mums are going to be here. People will be here to support you and will get you through these bad things. And I didn't expect that necessarily from a film about sexual assault, that you would come away being like, oh, like it's really about community and about the people around you that can help bring you out of this, or not necessarily even bring you out of it, but maybe make it less bad. And that was for me the biggest refreshing change that I don't think the other films have quite done. And I don't think the purpose of those other films were to be optimistic. So I for me, that's what really connected me with this movie.
Yeah, and you just named some of my favorite and like the most surprising scenes for me as well.
Yeah.
And look, Alison, when you look at Metacritic, the Sorry Baby currently has a score of 88. And its score would have been a lot higher if it wasn't for your review in Vulture. I mean, if this were Marvel,
the stands would be coming for me. Yeah.
So talk to me. Like, where did this film fall short for you?
Yeah, I know. It's so hard with a film like that where I feel like it's coming from someone who's just like very talented and has so much promise. I think the thing that was the most interesting about the film for me is also, I think, where I felt like it fell short, which is like, it is a film that's very interested in language. I mean, it is about an English professor, and it is about, in a lot of ways, the inadequacy of the language, especially the kind of like codified language of like the institutions, like how inadequate it is to kind of like describe what this person is actually feeling. Like the scene where Agnes is going to a doctor the day after this happened, beyond like the kind of like horrifying moment where the doctor is basically like, well, next time you should come into the emergency room, like, and these characters are like, great, thanks. Like, is that just like even the kind of like the doctor coming in and kind of barking like, you were raped, and they like characters kind of flinch, because also like that just doesn't feel like it kind of like addresses the entirety of like the thing that actually happened, right? But I feel like the film also maybe leans a lot on not talking about things to kind of fill in, I think, more complexity than it actually puts on screen. Like, I wanted to know more about what was going on in Agnes's head, and I think the film kind of allows that to be carried a lot by just like the ways characters talk around it. In particular, there's a scene where her best friend says something like, having come to visit her years after the kind of this initial kind of trauma, and like says after the visit, like, don't die. And I was like, there is like an enormity there that like kind of like I did not feel the film actually like put on screen for me to kind of like get a sense of why she would say that, like. So I think that like, I don't know. I mean, like, I think like this film has such a great sense of like both like, I think the ways in which systems fail you, but also how you can kind of like deflect with jokes, and like that can speak volumes. But I also wanted a bit more of filling in of like the internality of these characters.
It's interesting because I came out of this movie and was like, I think that might be my favorite movie of the year. Really loved it. But then like, But then I read your review and listen to you talk about it, and it's like, yeah, those are that you open up the shortcomings for me that I now want to go back to that film and interrogate further. But
Sorry.
it's fine. It's what
a review should do.
That's what exactly.
Yeah,
As Jackson's
exactly.
saying, that's exactly what the reviews need to do. And look, I mean, Jackson, I mean, what I was really taken by this movie is it's not the balance between the humor and the heavy stuff, but it's how they were kind of in relation to each other.
Yeah.
But you know, when you talk about that, I mean, some critics have called this a black comedy. I don't know that I would go that far in describing it. But how do you feel about the way humor presented itself amidst all this heavy stuff?
I mean, this is only my own subjective definition, but I don't think that this would qualify as a black comedy for me, because a black comedy to me has to be a movie that is about it's making a joke of the situation, however dark that situation is. It's maybe gallows humor making light of it, like something like Death of Stalin, where that's somebody dying, but they're laughing at it. This is showing somebody who is using comedy as a grieving mechanism, but the movie itself is not humorous. There are humorous things that happen, or humorous ways she deals with this trauma, but this movie, I think, is really trying to grapple with that well of sadness. And I think ways that it can fail or succeed is how light of a touch it does have. You are really kind of making a lot of this for yourself. And even as Rachel just said something, it just made a connection in my brain, how her take from this movie is it kind of made her feel good about herself, and that ending monologue at the end was kind of about that acceptance. That's exactly what she says about her abuser's book before he abuses her. So I think that this movie is very much, if you can make these connections, it's dealing with how we use language, how we get over trauma. That might be grief, but the movie, I mean, that might be comedy, but the movie itself is not comedic. It's more about those connections and those investigations.
Well, you know, I mean, when we talk about, again, like the balance between like the comedy and the drama, the heavy stuff, I mean, people have compared Eva Victor to other actor filmmakers like Phoebe Waller-Bridge and Greta Gerwig. And Rachel, I mean, really quickly, like, what do you make? Do you see the connection there?
I see the connection. I get it. I don't necessarily buy into it, though. I don't really think Eva belongs in that group of like the manic pixie dream girl director right now. I feel like they have such a distinct voice, a unique way of telling a story. It reminds me more, like they remind me more of Joanna Hogg, who did The Souvenir. Like that is more the beat that I'm getting from them, more than the Greta and the Phoebe. I get that as well, but like I do think that her tone and the way she uses language, like to Jackson's point, I think it's very different to what the others have done. And I'm really excited to see what she does now. I can't believe this is like a directorial debut. I find that absolutely incredible. Okay,
and I just want to be clear, manic pixie girl, whatever, that applies to Greta. We will not say that about Phoebe Waller-Bridge, okay? All right? But, okay, listen, Sorry Baby, it's opening in limited theaters today, and it's going to expand to more theaters in the coming weeks. So now let's move on to the movie that's opening everywhere, you know, the one with the dinosaurs.
This would be a medical breakthrough that could save countless lives. It comes from the largest dinosaurs on the planet.
Oh my God.
Fortunately for us, all these species exist in one isolated place. Can you be ready tomorrow?
I can guarantee your safety. I mean, more or less.
More or less?
That's the trailer for Jurassic World Rebirth. It stars Scarlett Johansson, Mahershala Ali, and Jonathan Bailey. They're playing a covert team collecting dinosaur blood for a new miracle drug. Alison, this is the fourth in the Jurassic World series, and of course the seventh in this franchise that began 32 years ago with Jurassic Park. Does this installment justify its existence?
Well, I feel like several of these Jurassic Worlds have had trouble justifying their existence, except that they've all made like over $1 billion, which I guess is the actual justification from a most basic standpoint. But it is funny how like a constant drumbeat in the Jurassic World is that people just get bored of dinosaurs easily. You know, they have to like keep coming up with like mutant dinosaurs to please these fickle audiences. In the start of this movie, there is a dinosaur like dying next to the road in downtown Brooklyn, and people are just frustrated because it's causing traffic. I don't know why, like dinosaurs are apparently like so boring to people. We still go to zoos, but like we're like, oh, dinosaurs, they've been around for a few years now. But it's funny that this movie actually, I think, achieves being boring, which is, like you've done it, like you have finally fulfilled the prophecy. But yeah, it is a movie that I'm such a sucker for like dinosaur action. I'm like, is it gonna eat that guy? It ate that guy. But like in this movie, it just really struggles to come up with a reason why ScarJo and her team will have to go. It's like a video game quest of like, for reasons we need to sample blood from like a big flying dinosaur and a swimming dinosaur and all. Yeah, it feels like itself like frustrated with having to come up with new scenarios while also hitting the beats we expect from a Jurassic movie. So I think it'll probably make a lot of money anyway, because like people like are also suckers for dino action like me, but it is like the least kind of motivated of all of these movies that I've seen so far.
When you were talking about like this aspect of the plot that just feels so muddled, like people are no longer interested in dinosaurs. They're no longer going to the museums to, observe these big creatures. For me, like that was like, that felt like this movie had a muddled response to the pandemic, because the character actually says, hey, 5 years ago, people used to come to the museum to see these dinosaurs, and so it's almost like he's speaking to how substitute museums for movie theaters. Then it's like, oh, people used to come out for Jurassic World movies, and so this movie feels like it's trying to respond to a post-pandemic, lack of people being interested to come out to a Jurassic World, except that people are rushing to movie theaters right now, right? So I feel like it was muddled there. And also, you talk about the pandemic and this plot with the big pharma and the travel restrictions and all of that stuff. Somewhere along the way, if that's what they were going for, they so got lost. But like Jackson, like storytelling muddled all of that stuff aside. You have a cast that Oscar winners, very celebrated actors. Do they elevate this from being kind of the typical Hollywood sequel slop?
I think that they definitely elevate it, but they elevate it from garbage to like garbage with a bow on it, really. That's as best as I can say, because we do have one of the best actors, I think, in this movie, or best characters in this movie, is played by David Iacono. He plays Xavier, the kind of lazy layabout Pete Davidson type character. And the actor himself does such a good job of making him interesting to watch, but the writing fails him at every turn. And it fails all of the actors, because Mahershala Ali kind of does the same thing. But when you get a formulaic movie, formulas work for a reason, because they have a beginning, middle, end, an arc that makes you satisfied and interested. These character archetypes do not understand why they're character archetypes. Zora Bennett, the Scarlett Johansson character, is supposed to be like an Indiana Jones clone, but there's no heart to her character, reason to care what she's doing, so she's just gruff and mean to people for no reason. The doctor character played by Jonathan Bailey is basically just Milo from the Atlantis movies, except in those movies, he wanted to find Atlantis to, prove his grandpa's legacy right, and to like change his connection to humanity in general and find out that these things are real living beings on the page. But this doctor just likes dinosaurs, sees a dinosaur, says, great, dinosaurs. And the movie just goes forward. All of it is just pointless, bad writing. That great acting, and I don't think Scarlett Johansson does great, but everyone else is really good, doesn't make the movie anything more than just, this is terribly written.
And I think like the best gag in this movie, and I think, Alison, you might have mentioned this in your review, is that like Scarlett Johansson, she's playing a character who is very reluctantly signing on to this dino expeditions because of how many zeros are in the check. And so like that definitely
art imitates life.
Exactly. She was committed to the character in that sense. Okay.
Yes.
But okay, Rachel, look, this is a movie that is clearly striking out with both Alison and Jackson. Are you gonna find any redeeming quality about Jurassic World Rebirth?
Yeah, I loved it. No, I'm kidding. It wasn't good. I will say there's an incredible, like impressively gratuitous use of John Williams' score in this. And it's one of the best scores that has ever been created for film, in my opinion. And every chance that they had to throw those notes in, they did it. And in a movie like this, I'll say that was probably the best part. I enjoyed listening to the score. It's a really beautiful score, and I can listen to that over and over and over again. And that was probably the only thing that I went, oh, that's really cool. I enjoyed listening to this. Other than that, though, I don't know why we're fighting heart disease in a Jurassic Park movie. I think that's very strange. I don't know why. The reasoning to go after like the large dinosaurs, and they go, because they have big hearts. Okay. And no one laughed in the theater. I thought that was really funny, but nobody laughed. It is, but at this point, it almost feels insulting. Like they're just actively trying to go on the offensive against the original movie. I don't know why Steven Spielberg's an executive producer on this one, but it's just, I fail to find enough good things to talk about it that would justify it like recommending it to anybody. I mean, unless you want to listen to the John Williams score again, which is a good, it's good.
Look, anything that brings me back to the original Jurassic Park,
Yeah.
which in my mind is like, the last really, truly great blockbuster movie. Like, I don't think it's
Yes.
undefeated in that sense. And also a movie that really predicted this moment, right? Because the idea that they're going to milk this franchise for everything they got was built into that original movie. So Jurassic Park was owning this movie long in advance.
Absolutely.
All right, we'll leave Jurassic Park aside now. I'm Rad Simonpillai, filling in for Elamin Abdelmahmoud. You're listening to Commotion. I'm here in the group chat with Rachel Ho, Alison Wilmore, and Jackson Weaver, and we've been talking about some of the movies that have been hitting theaters this week. Now let's talk about one that just debuted on Amazon Prime.
Mr. Prime Minister.
Mr. President.
It's our debut duet.
Duet.
Yeah, it's like I'm Dr. Dre and you're Eminem, and we're taking that stage for the first time together.
I'm Eminem.
That is John Cena and Idris Elba in the new action comedy Heads of State. They're playing a U.S. president and a British prime minister who are butting heads until they got to buddy up and fight off assassins and rogue militias. Allison, I mean, this feels like the kind of big budget movie premise that 30 years ago could have been a big summer blockbuster in theaters, but it's just squeaking into Amazon Prime Video. So what do you make of that?
I'm very confused by Amazon Prime's original film kind of strategy. They've released a lot of movies that seem like they were made for a big theatrical release, like Another Simple Favor or G20, or like all of these movies that have like stars in them and that are like kind of going broad and like aiming for like big entertainment. And then they just kind of dump them on streaming and it feels like they barely exist. And with this film, I was like, this film seems like it was made for, it's got, big kind of like action set pieces. It's got 2 stars that I really like. And, I don't know. But I as much as I'm bewildered by that, I did feel like in terms of like just like dumb summer entertainment, this like just cleared the bar for me. It did what I needed. It had like two actors who I really enjoy, and it had like really goofy, excessive action sequences. So, for me, I was like, I don't know why we have to just go to streaming for this, but it's fulfilling a need.
Yeah, well, and look, I mean, you're talking about 2 actors that we really enjoy. I mean, Jackson, I mean, of course, in a movie like this where you got this kind of odd couple dynamic, it's really important to have chemistry between these 2 leads. So really quickly, do you think John Cena and Idris Elba pull that off?
I think they do. I'm embarrassed that I liked this movie a little bit. And I think a lot of this movie, like, it predicates itself on assumptions about, American personalities and British personalities and ideas that we have about those kind of countries. And I think that despite the politics being weird and gross, it does really work well, and they do play off each other very, very nicely. I will say, though, that the biggest chemistry bomb, in a good way, explosion, let's say, is Jack Quaid. Oh my goodness gracious. He was my favorite part of this movie. I loved him in it. But they all had chemistry. They all knew what they were here to do. They did not just see the ones and zeros on the paycheck and phone it in. They went the full mile, and I like this movie. I'm so sad.
I mean, I agree. And also, we should say Priyanka Chopra Jonas is in this as well, and I think she brings it as well. Rachel, really quickly, like, look, this is a movie where John Cena is playing a U.S. president that used to be a movie star, who blurts out things he probably shouldn't say as a politician, but he's so deeply wants to endear himself to folks. And, there's this tension between him and the U.S. president, the British president, while NATO is hanging in the balance. Oh, gosh. Some echoes of the real world. And I got 30 seconds here for you, but does any echoes to the real world actually elevate this film for you?
No, it's just no. It's a big distraction, in my opinion. I think it's just a really massive distraction. Are they trying to make a political statement? Are they trying to make like a bold statement supporting NATO? Who knows? It's just meant to be like a really poor man's Guy Ritchie imitation kind of film. It's just meant to fill silences when you put it on when you're doing the laundry, doing the dishes. That's the kind of movie it is. It's not meant to be anything more than that.
I made dinner while I watched it. It was perfect.
There you go. Exactly. Like that's the kind of movie it's meant to be. And I don't think it's meant to be taken seriously from a political thing. And because politics today is so polarized, like it's kind of hard to get away from that. And so to me, it was more distracting than anything else.
Okay, amazing. All right, so we got to leave it there. But thank you all for being here.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it was great.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Super fun.
Rachel Ho is the film editor for Exclaim in Toronto. Jackson Weaver is a senior writer at CBC Entertainment, also in Toronto. And Alison Wilmore is a film critic at Vulture in New York. I'm Rad Simonpillai, sitting in for Elamin Abdelmahmoud. This is Commotion. That is it for our show today. But by the way, if you can listen to any episode at any time of any episode of Commotion at any time, wherever you get your podcast. And we will see you on Monday.